The 1970 Ford Mustang Boss 302AN, icon of American muscle car history. This car wasn't just about looks, it was built to compete and win, and it has plenty of stories to tell. Let me spin a few tales for you. The Street King and the Track Star. Back in 1970, the Boss 302 wasn't just another pretty face. It was Ford's answer to the Chevy Camaro Z28 in the Trans Am Racing Series. Legendary racer Parnelli Jones drove a Boss 302 to a championship win that year. On the street, kids would gather at night, listening for the rumble of that solid lifter 302 cubic inch V8. Some said if you tuned it just right, it would scream past anything GM had to offer. It wasn't just fast, it was balanced, handling corners as well as it devoured straightaways. The designer's vision, Larry Shinoda, the designer behind the Boss 302, was said to have called it the Boss, because he was working directly for Simeon Bunky Knudsen, Ford's president at the time. When people asked Shinoda who he was building it for, he'd grin and say, "I'm the boss," in Knudsen's honor. Shinoda's sharp eye brought the C-stripe graphics, the flat black hood treatment, and that aggressive stance. People still say his design gave the Boss 300 to its attitude. Dealership legends. Old-timers tell tales of Ford dealerships in 1970 where the Boss 302s would sit behind glass like untouchable race cars. One story talks about a kid who spent every Saturday sweeping floors and washing cars at his local dealer, just for the chance to sit in the Boss 302. When closing time came, he swore he could hear the car whispering, "Take me to the track." Years later, he bought that very car when it showed up at a classic auction original Grabber Blue, Magnum 500 wheels, and that screaming 290 horsepower engine under the shaker hood. The sleeper story. One infamous Boss 302 in Detroit was known as the Phantom. It was said to be a plain Jane white car with no stripes, no spoilers, nothing flashy. But under the hood, it was rumored to be packing more than the stock 290 horses. Street racers in the know said it was a ringer, built by a former Ford engineer, and on Woodward Avenue, it would silently line up, destroy the competition, and disappear before anyone could get its plate number. The comeback. A man in Texas found his father's old 1970 Boss 302 rusting behind a barn. The car had raced in amateur events back in the 70s, but after an accident, it was parked and forgotten. Years later, he restored it with his own son, keeping the scars on the underbody as a reminder of its racing past. When they fired up the engine after the rebuild, neighbors blocks away came to listen. They said it sounded like the past was roaring back to life.
The Trans Am warrior. While the Boss 302 ruled the streets, its real legacy was forged on the racetrack. In 1970, Parnelli Jones and George Falmer drove the Boss 302 in the SCCA Trans Am series, where the battles were brutal. It wasn't just about speed, it was about endurance, skill, and engineering. Ford's Boss 302 faced off against Camaro's Challengers and Javelins in a no-holds-barred fight for supremacy. That year, Ford clinched the championship. People who were there say the roar of those Boss 302s echo in their ears to this day. It wasn't just racing, it was war. The 1970 Boss 302 came in colors like Grabber Orange, Grabber Blue, and Grabber Green, high-impact shades that screamed, "Look at me." It wasn't just paint, it was a declaration of speed,